For you shortly. Also this morning, Dean of the University of Cape Coast Business School, Professor John Gachi, backs calls for the restoration of licenses of some collapsed banks, arguing it could forestall future arbitrary shutdowns of financial institutions. But Professor Lord Mensah fears the move could incur more costs for the nation. On the NDC's primaries from the weekend, Asawasi MP Muntaka Mubarak has hit back at leadership of the NDC over what he says were attempts to have him lose his seat. And much later, we'll tell you how transport fares are to go down by 10% from tomorrow in reaction to the drop in fuel prices. We have details of these stories and a lot more if you stay with us for the next 10 minutes. Pleasure that you could be a part of this morning's bulletin. I am Eric Mawuena Egbeta. Let's begin from Kolite, known as Chakoso site in the Brim North district of the Eastern region, where a mining pit collapsed yesterday with some 17 people fear trapped. The illegal mining pit caved in while active mining was ongoing, with some 7 persons already feared dead. It is unclear what caused the collapse of the pit, but some community members suggest the heavy rainfall recorded in most parts of the country on Monday is a contributing factor. My colleague Yvonne Nikwe reports.
Rescue efforts for yesterday at the Takoso community, where the illegal mining site caved in, recorded 7 deaths. 5 people survived after the rescue mission by the residents with police intervention. What we do know that 7 from the death are victims that live in close by communities. Now, as we speak, the community members and family are in distress because of the death of the victims. The bodies are currently in a hospital facilities nearby.
My colleague Yvonne Nikwe with that report, and all throughout the day we'll be providing updates for you here on 3FM on the situation in the town. Away from this though, the Dean of the University of Cape Coast Business School, Professor John Gachi, has backed proposals by former President John Mahama to restore the licenses of some collapsed banks during the financial sector cleanup. John Dramani Mahama, in his acceptance speech after securing some 98.9% in the just ended primaries of the NDC, amongst many things, assured to restore licenses to some of the banks that were collapsed during the banking sector cleanup. Here is what the former president said.
We will restore indigenous Ghanaian investments in the financing and banking sector, and we will create a tiered banking system that will serve various segments of the market. We will give the opportunity for experienced banking hands who were laid off and needlessly to secure their careers once more and move away from the menial jobs that they were compelled to take. As far as practicable, the banking licenses that were unjustly cancelled by this government will be restored.
That's former President John Mahama, now NDC flag bearer, head of the University of Cape Coast Business School. Professor John Gachi says the move is laudable and feasible.
I believe is not only going to be about restoration of businesses to business owners, but it's also going to put regulatory officers on their toes to make sure they respect the right of every person. They don't discriminate against people, and they ensure that they are fair towards anybody, whether the person is in power or is not in power. They will understand that you ought to be very careful and you ought to be very fair to all these people. Yes, there are social impact of.
That's Professor John Gachi, he's a Dean of the University of Cape Coast Business School. But according to economists with the University of Ghana, although the approach adopted by the current government in the banking sector cleanup was wrong, the latest proposal could incur more costs for the country.
each of the banks had, a reason for, operating. And then the customer target and specialities that they were operating in. Some were targeting, small businesses. Some were targeting some, areas of agriculture. Some were targeting, maybe that kind of micro finance, related clients that they may, hit on them. And I can say that on authority that it will cost us more compared to the benefit that would have gained.
That's economist with the University of Ghana, Professor Lord Mensah. Away from this, but staying on the NDC primaries from the weekend, and the Member of Parliament for Asawase, Mohammed Muntaka Mubarak, says losing his leadership position in Parliament was part of a grand scheme to take him out of the Legislative Assembly. Speaking to 3FM, the former Minority Chief Whip said he has sacrificed for his party and should not have been treated like a non-entity.
Gentleman Mama called both myself and Haruna and Abedi to plead with us to let go. Me, I'll let go. But I can tell you, it was part of the strategy to get me out. No, any political person who is mature will not say that that was part of the strategy to get me out. Because Abedi was not going to contest. Haruna didn't have any contender. I was the only one who had a contender, right? So to have done that at that time was part of the strategy to get me out. But I keep saying, God is not the village chief. God doesn't hate people because you hate them. God doesn't dislike people because you dislike them. God, he looks at our hearts.
That's Asawase Member of Parliament Mohammed Muntaka Mubarak. In a related development, the Ghana Integrity Initiative have become the latest group to call for further investigations in the report of vote buying during the NDC primaries. Social media has been awash with videos of some aspirants sharing cash and other gifts to delegates over the weekend, and the Office of the Special Prosecutor has already taken interest and commenced investigations. And a press statement by the Ghana Integrity Initiative said the act is condemnable and should be investigated. Away from that, public transport users are to, from tomorrow, expect a 10% reduction in fares. It comes on the back of a drop in the price of fuel. The road transport operators, in a statement Monday night, said the reduction affects shared taxis, intracity, trotro, intercity, that's long distance and haulage vehicles. And it reads that in line with the administrative arrangement on public transport fares, the road transport operators have reduced public transport fares by 10% to accommodate for the reduction in the price of petroleum products observed over that period. The World Health Organization has commenced a risk factor surveillance training in Ghana to collect data to curb the rising numbers in non-communicable diseases. That data collection is intended to develop interventional strategies to combat non-communicable diseases. The data collection will be carried out on persons 16 to 69 years to determine their strength of immunity to non-communicable diseases. Bafwewa is the technical director of the Ministry of Health.
Some of the risk factors are unhealthy lifestyle, tobacco use, harmful use of alcohol, physical inactivity, and the like. We don't have a national data that depicts the severity of risk factors. But in our policy too, we also want to reduce exposure to risk factors. So if we don't have mechanism to measure the degree of existence of these risk factors, then you can also not have a solid intervention.
As Technical Director at the Ministry of Health, Bafwe, who are ending this morning's edition of the news here on 3FM 92.7. As always, a lot more news if you log on to 3news.com. Johnny Hughes and the rest of the Sunrise team, they are next with the best breakfast in the capital.